applications. We're going to move the spectrum all the way over to experimental and development applications with the Trojan Express network. And no.
Sorry, yours is wrong.
Mine is wrong.
We're doing this.
It's not the only time I've been wrong.
We're doing this one first.
Moving ahead. I'd like to introduce you Connie Stewart and the California Center for Rural Policy at Humboldt State University. Connie is currently the Executive Director of the California Center for Rural Policy at Humboldt State. The California Center for Policy fosters rural research for and by rural communities to improve the health and well-being of rural people and environments. Through CCRP, Connie's current work includes a number of projects related to health services through access to broadband in rural areas. So Connie, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. I should start by just saying how I'm really deeply honored, and I don't know if Jim Delganis is still here, but Jim, traveled all over California, and we're up at the tippy top. It's very hard to get there. And I can't ever recall a broadband meeting I was at that Jim wasn't there. And so,
It's up?
It's there. Yeah. You got it.
Okay.
Yeah. So congratulations to him. And I like I said, I'm just deeply honored, and the center's deeply honored. I brought some of my staff here that have, in and out of their tenure, had to help me with different broadband projects. Sarah Williams, who's here, is someone who has to travel with me often to do broadband stuff when we put on rural forums. And Melissa, who is our attorney on staff, has to do FCC filings. I come from broadband work as a policy leader, and originally started and got interested in fiber deployment issues because we had none in Humboldt County. I don't know if you all know the story of the fight between Caltrans and at the time I think it was SBC, for when Caltrans decided that perhaps everyone should pay to use their right-of-way in order to get fiber optic. And AT&T and Pac Bell and SBC said, no, that doesn't really make sense. And so for many years, our community was in limbo over 17 miles of fiber that could not get built. And the whole entire region became very, very aware of what was going on with deployment in California, and very activated. From the senior baby boomer to the hotel person, everyone was just really engaged. And so we've remained engaged, and the second we got our fiber project, we immediately said we need more. And at the time, I think AT&T was by then it was AT&T, and they were exhausted and said, what, you need more? And we said yes. So briefly, you've heard already the California Center for Rural Policy. We started because rural regions in California, especially those that are working on health issues, get their data from UCLA, and UCLA has a very urban-based way of getting data. They use phones, and a lot of rural people don't have phones to gather survey data on the health of folks. So for years, we'd run around and we'd say, we don't really like that data. It's not really good data, but we don't have any better data. So we went to the California Endowment and asked for some funding to build our own data, and that's the center. We started out with just sort of like scenic, very humble. We have about 22 people on staff now who do rural research for rural communities throughout the state. And one of the big places has been broadband, where we worked. So from being mayor of the city of Arcata and being a little concerned, I went to work for the state legislature. I worked for Assemblymember Patty Berg for 6 years. And when I got hired at CCRP, Steve Karp, who was in charge of the Redwood Coast Connect project, came into my office happily and handed everything to me and said, you are now the project manager for RCC. And it's been a joy to work throughout the state with rural colleagues. We believe every community, no matter how small, should have affordable, ubiquitous broadband. We know that that's not financially possible. We don't believe in free lunches, so communities do raise money to try to get providers to provide service. We've been very successful with the co-op model where we try to get all the providers to work together and do deployment together. And then we work, come on, can't you just go another 6 miles to that next hamlet? We've had very good success in the last 5 years. I'm known as Sherpa of the Redwoods. If you want to come up and see what we do, I'm happy to take you on a tour. I took NPR on this tour. This is Trinity County, which is just to the east of Humboldt County. And that is an AT&T fiber line that goes straight down the middle of the county to Cloverdale. But when it was being built, they didn't have a POP on it. So no, it does not serve Trinity County. Actually, it might now, because I hear AT&T is now providing backhaul to Verizon in Trinity County, so I'm wondering if they finally put something in there so we have an off-ramp to that fiber. But it's an example of how rural communities, when a lot of these big projects were being built, didn't really understand deployment, and so they weren't really active about saying, hey, look, can you do something for our community? And so many of them have suffered with being part of the highway but not having an off-ramp. Right now, one of the things I'm very passionate about is the fact that we've got the FCC trials coming up, and the FCC and USDA are looking at how they're deploying funding for broadband. And we just last week, during the FCC trials, they just had the letter of interest. And many, I think I counted at least 18 people who had put areas in of letters of interest, and there's probably more for actually doing deployment, and many of them have rural communities. But I also worked with rural communities throughout the state to get a letter in that said, we are a net contributor to the High Cost Fund. We give about $380 million a year, and we get back very little of it to do broadband deployment in our own regions. And we really ought to look, instead of having rules that are written for rural deployment that match the entire country, and rural on the other side of the Mississippi looks quite different than rural in the West. And so the rules often don't match up, and we don't get a good portion of our funding back. And so we think that there should be programs that look specifically at California's needs. We have, the CPUC has the California Advanced Services Fund, which has about $170 million for broadband deployment in rural communities in it. And if we could get matching funds, which is only half of what we contribute to the high cost, we could do a lot of deployment with $400,000 or $500 million. Sorry. So just how many of you are from rural communities? That's more than I thought, and urban. So I'll just do a little bit about rural. There's approximately 5.1 million. That's about 10% of all rural. You don't think of California as a rural state, but we are. 80% of California's landmass is in rural, and 44 out of 58 counties have rural in it. So I was just back at USDA, and they interviewing with rural people, and they were still referring to rural California as a land of fruits and nuts. So I think that we really sort of need to be changing the perception of California nationwide, but that's a whole nother talk. California's goal overall is to reach 98% broadband deployment by 2017, and that means we have about 225,000 unserved households left to go, and 500 million or so would help. I just want to talk briefly about our region, and know that the CPUC is asking rural, or not rural, everyone who's involved in CAS to come up with high priority areas for deployment. What the plan is that we will identify those areas, and then they will ask the providers if they would like first right of refusal to serve those communities. If the providers don't, they will actively seek applications to serve those communities. So right now, wherever you live, or whether you're urban or rural, LA has its high priority list as well. These lists are being put together. And one of the observations I'll make is besides the Redwood Coast, there's only one tribal community that is, and it's in the Eastern Sierras, that's made it to the list. When you consider half the tribes in California don't have broadband, if you live near a tribe, please let them know that they should be in contact with whoever's working on deployment in their region to try to get on this high priority list. You will still be able to get a CASF application, which is the California Advanced Services Fund. Please stop me if I acronym you to death. If you don't have this designation, but it will be a lot easier because you'll actually have some recognition that your community needs service there. So please, contact me if you'd like to know who in your area you should be talking to. This list is going to be ready by the summer, May. So here's in the very north of here, Mendocino County's priorities are Route 1 and a couple of subdivisions that got purchased in communities that don't have access. So Route 1, if any of you are familiar with it, from here you go west, and you can go up the coast to Fort Bragg and Point Arena and others. And there's approximately 170 anchor institutions there and about 1,074 unserved communities and many underserved. So we'd like to get that area a little more built. AT&T is doing a lot of work to connect schools in this region, but businesses and residents are still hurting. And here's an example of Sherwood Road is an example of a subdivision that got built with no fiber connectivity. So in Trinity County, and this has been up on the scenic priority list for a long time, Highway 299 has a big cluster of folks, of communities that are very geographically challenged. And this would also provide us a ladder if we can get 101 connected to I-5. So this has been a big priority since we started, and we've had a few attempts, but unfortunately providers have not been able to find matching funds. We think we're going to have better luck this time. So we're hoping to get this build going. Trinity County also has a few communities that are very remote, and High and Palm is one of them. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it's a fabulous community, and I'm desperately hoping we can get service to them. And then in Humboldt County, we have, this is one of the tribal areas, Highway 96. Hoopa is the largest by landmass tribe in the state of California, and it does not have very good connectivity. So we're hoping that the tribe will actually be the provider in here. We've had tribes that have used USDA Connect America funds to match state funds and have successfully, the Karuk tribe and the Yurok tribe recently got an application, and they're going to be their own provider because they're so remote, no one else really can do it. So they're stepping up to the plate, and they're going to have, it's going to be 100% built by tribal members. So it's an incredible economic opportunity for them, for that very remote community. It's going to serve a lot of non-native people too, and I don't think those non-native communities would be able to have access very easily without the tribe's help. So, and then also Humboldt County has some very, very sparsely populated communities that we would like to get some wireless connectivity to. So I'm really excited about this one. We have a meeting with Frontier tomorrow to talk about the Mattole Valley, and this is kind of the Lost Coast. I don't know if any of you have been hiking or camping out there. Probably a lot of you who are familiar with schools know that the testing's coming, and unfortunately the testing is probably going to be a test of your broadband connectivity and not a test of the students in your school. And so really, it's hopefully going to give us a little bit more political oomph to get broadband not only to those schools, but out to those residents, because schools, I mean, students, as you well know, don't just learn in school, they learn at home too. So we're meeting with Frontier. Hopefully we can get them interested in doing that. But a lot of what I do is just go beg providers and try to kill them with kindness all day long. And in Del Norte County, the Yurok tribe would love to be connected to Crescent City. And Del Norte County is an example of a community that has incredible, it's probably one of their only gyms where they're ahead of every rural community in the state is on their connectivity. They have been really working hard with Oregon to get fiber optic through. So they've had joint grants over the border to provide service, but the one big missing loop is connecting the tribe to Crescent City. So we're hoping, and part of the big challenge is state and national parks. I don't know if there's anybody here from that, so I can say they're terrible to work with. And so regulation in California is the worst. And the story I tell about state parks is the administration folks were calling me and saying, we want you to have no fiber, no wireless that can be viewed from any hilltop in the state park, when we were working on some planning documents. And then the next day, the IT guys calling saying, can you connect my campgrounds? I wanted to strangle them. So we've got a long way to go if we're going to have good broadband policy and make deployment easy. And I truly believe that broadband should be a right, not a privilege. And but like I said, I know it costs money in order for that to happen. And there is money out there, and we just need to be smarter about how we use it. And get some of it back from the feds because we give it. Oh, okay. So next, it's after lunch, and honestly, I need to say that and one of the reasons I'm truly honored to win this award is that I'm sort of the face of broadband in my community. There's so many important players, but being a former politician, and having a policy view and not a tech view means I get to come and do all the talks. So, and one of the ways I've gotten quite popular is because I write songs about rural broadband. I'd like to invite you to sing a song with me if you're willing after lunch. If you sing it really well, your reward is you might get to sing another one. So, but I do like to say before I show the song, it's not American Idol, and singing off key is what we expect, okay? So, and that's what makes it really fun. So what we need is part of the room to volunteer to be rural constituents, and part of the room to volunteer to be providers, because this song is to the tune of Green Acres. If you all remember, I just realized probably 2 or 3 of my staffers, maybe over here, probably weren't born when Green Acres was on. Oh, but hopefully they know the tune. So will you indulge me? Okay. So it's called the Rural Broadband Song, and why doesn't everybody get up? Because you really, in order to get your vocal cords, you have to stand up. So. Okay, so should we make half the room rural over here, and you guys can be the providers? Is that okay?
Which one's Eddie Albert? Which one is Ava Gabor?
Eddie Alford is rural.
Okay.
Ava is the providers. Okay, are you ready? Are you ready? So here we go. Everybody got those? Rural broadband is the place to build. Stretch fiber right over those hills, land spreading out so far and wide. Come on, providers, just tackle that countryside. LA is where we'd rather play. There's no customers with all that hay. Forget Backball with all that view. We wish we could, but there's just no revenue. Da-da-da-da-da, everywhere. Da-da-da-da-da, not there. Da-da-da-da-da, high speed. Da-da-da-da-da, subsidy. Da-da-da-da-da, more supply. Da-da-da-da-da, are you high? Well, we have a right. Well, maybe for a price. Rural broadband we must build. Do you want to do the other one? Yeah, come on.
Only if we know the tune.
Come on. Okay, so the next one is even better TV show. It's To the Ballad of Jeb Clapton. Clap it. Clamp it. Clamp it. Okay, you ready? And this one I had help from other rural friends. One, Jason Gray's in North Carolina, and Janet Topolsky's in Washington, D.C. So does everybody know what show that is? Beverly Hillbillies. Okay, got it? Ready? No. Come and listen to a story about a rural town with lots of great mountains but no fiber on the ground. And then one day, some policy so sound that before you knew it, there was broadband all around. Fiber, you know, high speed. Well, the first thing you know, healthcare got better there, and economic folks said we can grow jobs here. Rural California is the place you ought to be. So city folk come visit, and you can use their 4G. Sorry, I blew that one. So city folk came to visit. Oh, wait, climbing hills. That's sipping wine. Okay. Well, now it's time to say goodbye to all the digital divide, and kids in small rural schools are doing mighty fine. Those urban folk keep coming back to visit all those trees, to have a heaping helping of rural hospitality. Hillbilly, that is, set a spell. Take your shoes off. Y'all come back now, you hear? Thank you. Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments? Yeah, go ahead.
I had a question about the Lost Coast. There's a group, the
Sinkyone Wilderness.
Yeah, that are doing sort of actually preserving the land there. Do you work with them?
I do know Hawk and the gang at Sinkyone. In my old world, I was an environmentalist. So yes, I'm familiar with them. I don't work closely with them now at CCRP, but yeah, they're a wonderful group. Great example of land preservation. There's also the Usal Forest out there. The community has bought a community forest out there, RIFI, Redwood Forest Institute. So there's a lot of restoration.
If there was actually opportunity to connect them, because we're starting to work with them, and it would be nice to represent the wilderness. I mean, Lost Coast is gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, this Mattole build would not go quite that far. I should talk. Actually, I thought they were already connected. 101 Netlink has a wonderful. They're a example of a locally grown provider that provides incredible service, some of the best service in the community. I believe that they're out there already, but let me check. Yeah, because he covers most of that coast, very tip of northern Mendocino, and actually all the way to Eureka and Arcata. And he's now he's on the Highway 36 line, and also he's working his way across 299, which is why we only have half the communities so we're getting there. So, yeah. But I'll double check with him. Okay, thanks. Anybody else? I know after, go ahead.
I'm interested that you used to work in environmental preservation and now you do broadband stuff. What do you think is the relationship between environmental preservation and high-speed broadband? How do they reinforce one another rather than oppose?
Oppose?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I really think that we have to rethink cellular and wireless. I mean, the whole concept of measuring broadband deployment by households is out the window, as we all know. And in rural, every corn stalk, every cow is a customer now. And more it's going to be like that. And so wireless deployment is going to be key. And I think that as wireless deployment, communities, we've worked in Humboldt County, we have the first telecommunication element in our general plan. That's one of the things I'm very passionate about, because a lot of times what stops deployment is communities not wanting wireless deployment, and providers, rightfully so, are taking an attitude like, you'll get so angry about your coverage that you eventually will help us get deployment. So I think that, if communities get active about it, and we had tinfoil, I'm sorry, I shouldn't call them tinfoil people, but I can in this room, can't I? It's webcast. But we had really anti, and, nobody did us any help with the smart meter discussion. That really was a bomb. And so we have to work in communities even before the providers come there to figure out siting issues and siting locations and cohabitation agreements and all of that stuff. And we're talking about that in our communities actively so that we can avoid having a provider get a no and then disappear for 5 years until, and that's really key. They're hard conversations because the world was, scenic view. Especially communities like mine that have coastal issues and have to go. I was on the Coastal Commission. Don't boo and hiss. I love the Coastal Commission. But, it's really a struggle. It's really a struggle. And it's something that we all have to really work with because, fiber connectivity and wireless connectivity and good service is really, it's a justice issue. It's a justice issue. So we've got to deal with it. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you so much.